All right, Danielle, thank you for joining us today. This is fantastic. I've been asking everyone this question. How did you get into physician compensation?
Oh boy, I stumbled into physician compensation. I had spent most of my career in venture capital and private equity, and Gail and I actually developed a friendship. Gail, the founder of Ludi. And throughout the years, we just kept in touch, got coffees, and I, like many people who are investing in companies, got the bug to want to go actually grow one, not just sit on boards and be there from a periphery. And so I was interviewing with a bunch of companies for very similar roles that I ended up joining Ludi on, and Gail and I happened to be having one of our coffee touch bases. And she said, why don't you come do that with me instead? At the time, it felt like, kind of like a haha type situation, but we ended up meeting again a week later and had a real conversation in depth and earnest. And she walked me through Ludi, where we're at from a product standpoint, what the future vision is, the industry. And the thing that got me so excited about it is I'm a person who loves figuring out how to simplify complexity. And physician compensation is arguably one of the most complex professions and areas within healthcare that there are. It's so niche, it's so nuanced, and what got me excited about joining Ludi and getting into physician comp was that it's also one of the areas that has been dramatically underinvested in from an infrastructure standpoint. And I think we're seeing a lot of that now play out with the industry itself, but that's initially how I got into physician comp.
All right, that's exciting. We're going to circle back to some comments there, but I got to ask, what does your family think that you do?
Oh boy, my family thinks that I sit on a computer all day in my office and talk to people.
That's partly true.
Yes.
So you were talking about under-resourced, and I find that kind of fascinating from both a technology perspective and also building your own compensation teams.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of discussion this week. I hear a lot on how do I get the resources for my team and what are the appropriate resources there. So what do you think that looks like from an organizational perspective there? Where should organizations be investing the most in?
Yeah, I think it's three things, and this goes for any sort of technology initiative, not just provider compensation, but it's people, processes, and technology. And without doing all three of those at the same time, you're bound to fail. If you don't have the right people in place before you implement technology, you're much less likely to be successful. If you don't have the processes in place to support that technology and support those people, they're much less likely to be successful. So you have to have a strategy around those three specific aspects and do them in the right order.
Totally agree with that. I've seen a lot of challenge too, and there's been a lot of traction with getting organizations to elevate provider compensation workforce management within the organization, get it higher, have them have a seat at the executive level, and then start investing in talent and in the technology piece there. What is one of the things from a technology standpoint that you are focused on within the next 2 years to help develop Ludi to better serve the workforce teams?
Can we circle back to that question? Because I want to touch on something you specifically mentioned around elevating provider comp within the organization. And I think one of the things we don't talk about enough with this industry is that provider comp is so unique compared to any other facet of healthcare. Every other facet of healthcare, you have an owner and you know exactly what their job is and their responsibility. Provider comp overfaces legal, supply chain, the medical groups, the physicians themselves, the providers, the executive team. Every single aspect of healthcare has a part in making sure that provider comp works appropriately. And I think that's the big challenge, right? As a company, Ludi, that was one of our biggest challenges selling our software, is that who is the owner of this within the organization? And do they have the budget and do they have the authority to be able to push forward these initiatives and drive change? I think the provider comp teams have the exact same challenges within their own organizations, where how do I, one, build the consensus and build the stakeholders so that they understand why it's so important for us to create this as a discrete function and how we collaborate with all these individual silos. So you have to basically break down the political elements where one portion owns this piece and they don't want to lose it. This portion owns this piece, they don't want to lose it. And bring those people together into one ecosystem or one set of processes that work for all of those individuals and no one has to sacrifice, which is really hard to do. And so tying back to the technology piece of things, I think that's exactly what we're trying to do at Ludi. We are trying to build a digital and virtual ecosystem that can support what is a very complex functional area within healthcare. And that means that we can't build tools that only work for the folks who are responsible for comp design. We also have to build tools that help compliance, that help the legal team, and ensure that everyone's getting what they need out of that system, but it's hard to do. And so that's what we've been doing. That's been our ethos as a company from the very beginning. And we're continuing to chip off and develop new functionalities and capabilities to bring every type of component and person who's a stakeholder within the same ecosystem.
Totally makes sense. You think about provider comp teams, they work across the organization and all the way up. Mm-hmm. So they're working with operations in the hospital setting, the medical group ambulatory setting. They're working with compliance, legal, finance there. So you have to go across the organization and go up, and thinking about those different users is very important. Are there specific tools within our product that can help those teams navigate the communication between that?
You know, I think sometimes just providing visibility goes a long way to drawing attention, because I feel this in our own business. I'm a CEO, and I can't focus on everything at the same time, and we have a ton of conflicting priorities and initiatives. Multiply that times 1,000 with what the CEO or the CFO of a healthcare system's dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Oh, and by the way, people's lives are at stake if you do it wrong. And so I think what it comes down to is getting folks to spend 5 minutes focusing in on something. And the best way I know how to do that is to provide something that gives them visibility in something they don't know about their own organization. There's an opportunity. It doesn't have to be risks either. So, I feel like a lot of times we tend to focus so much on the negatives and focusing on how do we prevent and mitigate all the errors. Sometimes the more powerful thing is to focus on where can we have big wins if we really make the investment and buckle down on doing something the right way, and what that can lead long term. And so it's a lot of what we work on with our clients, where let's start with the foundation layer. Let's start with that foundation, get that in place. That's the technology, the process, the people. And then layer on top of that the tools to help with the financial performance, the strategic improvement initiatives, and sort of bring up that strategic ladder. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm seeing executives specifically get more excited about. Compliance is not new, right? Compliance is something that everyone has been focused on for years. The fear tactics, those don't really work, and they never really have. It's how can we create strategies in place that are going to enable these goals that these executives have around the organization long term. I mean, you talk to any CFO or CEO, they have a 5-year, a 10-year roadmap for the organization that they're working towards. And if what you're investing in and recommending helps achieve that faster and in a more efficient, better way, that's going to get their attention.
I want to hear more about data management and data integrations. I know it's been a focus for us internally there. Mm-hmm. Where are you seeing in the marketplace about data management and integration? What is some of the biggest roadblocks that you see health systems challenging with right now?
You know, it's interesting because I see two different types of organizations. There's organizations who have invested in something like a centralized data lake or a centralized warehouse, and they've gone through the painstaking effort of bringing all that data into one place. Truthfully, those clients are much easier for us to implement from a data standpoint because the data is all there. It's just what we do with the data that comes next. You have the other half of the market, though, who either from a lack of budget or just lack of prioritization haven't done that. And so they're operating very fragmented across all those different data pieces. And so from my perspective, technology only solves so much. Automation technology only solves so much. It's the input that really matters first. That's where you need to focus and prioritize, and then you can layer on top. It's all about that foundational layer and starting there and building on top of it.
Excellent. We hear a lot of buzz about AI in the marketplace. What are you most excited about with this new AI technology that's just rapidly expanding?
Oh man, huge technology nerd, so I have a lot of thoughts on this. So I'm trying to figure out how to unpack them and simplify them all into one thing. I think one of the biggest opportunities for AI is that there is so much low-hanging fruit to do something faster, to communicate better, and to take work off our team's plate. And the challenge in provider compensation when it comes to implementing AI is that you can't be wrong in provider compensation, and AI today is inherently wrong all the time. And so you have to decide, like, where are those use cases that you can deploy AI that are going to save your team time, that are going to improve visibility, that are going to improve transparency, like expose more and make life easier for physicians, take times off their plate. Those are the use cases you have to focus on, because the technology is not there today to be accurate and when it comes to the actual comp administration side of things or like the contract side of things. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on that side.
Excellent. I totally agree with that. When we're thinking about implementing technology and even AI, there's a lot of hesitation thinking that this is going to replace jobs. I personally don't think that's true. What are your thoughts on implementing technology from a perspective if those are maybe have a little hesitation from this is going to impact their jobs or reduce workforce needs?
I mean, I think AI long-term will absolutely replace jobs, but I don't think it's going to replace people. I think roles are going to change and shift and adapt. It's very similar to the advent of the computer, the internet, mobile devices. Those have all become so ingrained into every single aspect of what we do day to day. AI is no different. Every company will be AI driven. Every person will be leveraging AI to help them with normal tasks and be more efficient. And I think that's really where it's going. AI without humans is kind of scary.
Yes, I don't know if anyone wants to live in that world.
No.
So let's talk a little bit more about how you've built Ludi from a cultural perspective
Yeah.
in the last year. You've come in, you've taken on a new leadership role within the organization, and I would just say my personal belief is like I love working at Ludi. The culture is fantastic. Everyone I talk to at Ludi is very engaged. We're a remote organization. Could you share like what is some of the purpose-built initiatives that you focused on to drive this type of culture that we have?
Yeah, well, first of all, I can't take credit entirely for the culture because it is a huge joint effort on the entire part of both the leadership team and every person at Ludi. But I would say in terms of things that I'm very focused on when it comes to culture, the one thing you didn't mention in your spiel, and thank you, I pay you to say that, is collaboration. So collaboration is probably one of the most important aspects of Ludi. We are a fully remote company, but I think we operate more efficiently, more collaboratively than most in-person companies do because we are so intentional about the work that we do, about the channels of communication that we have structured and put in place. And I think the other part of collaboration is that you can't have it unless people are willing to speak up and speak their mind and share when something's going wrong and when something's going right. And we strongly encourage people to do that at Ludi. So every person has a voice, their opinions heard. We have a lot of platforms and forums for them to be able to do that on a day-to-day basis and at our company meetings. But that's, to me, the number one thing out of everything from a culture standpoint is that collaboration. And so when we're recruiting people and we are bringing in new folks, we are intentionally trying to actively find people who we believe will continue to be very collaborative, very low ego, excited about what we're doing, passionate about the space, wanting to build something complex, hard to do in a very complex, hard to do space. Because we're so intentional about that, I think it's why we've been able to preserve, when we've doubled the size of the company in almost a year and a half, which is just wild to me, the culture that makes it such a great place to work.
We're talking about growth and looking forward there. Where do you think the healthcare technology and physician compensation technology is going to be in 3 years from now? Where do you think the landscape is going to look like?
I think that we're going to see some more startups come in because it's been interesting. So I've been in this space for 6 years now. Ludi has been in it for going on 12. And the first 6 years, 7, 8, 9, the first few that I was there, it was all about education. We were trying to teach people why this was something that they needed to invest in, and that has shifted. We are no longer educating people on why technology can make their lives easier. They are actively seeking it out. They are actively looking at which vendors are going to meet their needs. And I think there are different schools of thought from the vendors in the space today on what does meet the needs for clients. We have a very different perspective and philosophy that I think more closely aligns that people, technology, and prospect aspect of everything together. But I think going forward, you're going to see people go deeper into the workflows. You're going to see folks go more robust when it comes to reporting standpoint. You're going to see more AI-driven processes throughout all of this. And I also think you're going to have some consolidation. I think you're going to see that start to take shape as well, because that's naturally what happens when markets start to take form and kind of hit that inflection point.
Excellent. Any questions for me?
Ooh, what's your favorite thing about Ludi?
You? No.
Again, I pay him to say that.
I would say the culture. Like, I'm going to be honest. It's so exciting to go to work for a place that has positive culture, the collaboration among the teams, and everyone's so driven to help provider compensation teams evolve and help our clients. So everyone is very focused on the mission and puts down their egos to drive this.
Yeah, I think you hit something on the head though that's so important. Like, change is so hard. Like, change for anyone's hard. I mean, we find that in our own business, right? Like, we ask our team to adopt a new process, new technology. No one's being like, yes, let's do it. I'm all aboard. It's like, one more thing, right? I need to add to my plate. I think that's just human nature. And so helping entire organizations drive that change, and like a lot, we talked earlier about all the stakeholders involved in the provider comp process, helping legal, compliance, provider comp, the executives, the physicians themselves. I mean, that is hard to navigate, and I have so much respect for especially the client services side of our house, because that's all they do all day long is help folks navigate that change.
That is also, I think, a very good point to bring up is the philosophy of Ludi's. We live in this eco space that we can live within the physician compensation team to help them in different avenues. It's not just a one-stop shop for everything that they need, but you can integrate the EHRs. We can bring in other aspects of the physician compensation, like data reporting and management there. And so it's really interesting that how our philosophy maybe differs from others, that I think there's just a lot of positive elements there.
Yeah, I also think like trying to do everything at once is almost impossible. Like, everyone has this like perfect ideal of what the perfectly connected ecosystem, perfectly performing like comp department and technology stack looks like. And I think that's a great goal, and that's what we want to get everyone towards. But the reality is it takes a while to get there. And so focusing on like where the low-hanging fruit is, where you can make a meaningful and quick impact and build on top of that and continue to see wins over time, like that's how you build trust with executive teams. That's how you build trust with your own teams that something's going to work. It's like you have to do things in the right way, in the right cadence and order of operations.